Hello, and welcome to Startup Voice with Efimchik. Today, I have a very special guest for you, Semyon Dukach, who is a serial entrepreneur and an investor. He's done a lot of interesting things in his life, including blackjack, which you can read about on Wikipedia. I did. Haven't seen the movie yet, but it's on my list of things to do. And I promised I wouldn't ask questions about it because I'm guessing it's sort of a page turn and not something you're interested in focusing on.
It's a bit of an old story, but if it comes up, we'll chat about it too. No problem.
Okay, so Semyon has a really interesting background, and I think he has a lot of interesting lessons he could teach all of us. So I prepared some questions. We might veer off of them, and that's fine.
Awesome. Let's go.
So to kind of break the ice a little bit, I thought we'd go through these blitz questions first. Keep it sort of short and fun, and then we do kind of the more serious ones if you want, or we'll switch to something else. All right? So, have you watched the show Silicon Valley?
Oh yeah, awesome show.
Favorite scene or episode?
Oh god, I love them all. I mean, it's hilarious. The characters, Guilfoyle, all of those guys, they're great.
And
It's surprisingly eerily realistic. Unlike, almost everything else. Usually when you're a real expert at something and you know about your field, whatever you read about it, it's like all wrong, right? And you read about other fields in fascination.
I can't watch.
But this is the only example where like the world I'm actually in is accurately reflected in a comedy show.
So anything where you go, oh yeah, I have basically that situation, maybe exaggerated.
Slightly, yeah, but really uncannily accurate.
Any specific one? No.
I don't know, like that story in the beginning about the company that raised too much money. Mm-hmm. And the guy's like, duh, should have just not taken all the money. Oh my god, like that was very real.
Yeah.
And not only real, but like subtle enough to where many people would find it novel and interesting.
Favorite startup idea doesn't have to be one of yours, could be something that you've heard that hasn't actually come to life.
Oh, I don't know. Ideas suck. I'm not that into ideas. I mean, it's the people that matter, The ideas.
No, right. This is more of a, something you heard and you go, wow, I wish that was like actually something that we had, and it's not.
You hear cool ideas all the time, but I don't get excited about ideas. I don't.
Interesting.
I have them, for sure, and I throw them at people, and sometimes, like, someone picks it up, and they usually don't stick at all, but every once in a while, like, an idea actually sticks and the business gets built, and that's really cool.
Okay, interesting.
Like, there's been at least one, like, pretty successful business that was built on an idea I had, and I don't even want to mention that, because the idea was such a tiny, minuscule component of building that business.
Of course.
That, like, it's just a coincidence that I happen to have verbalized it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting. So you don't get excited about ideas, but you can't. I mean, an idea is not everything, but it's a starting point, right? You can't really build.
I should rephrase that. Of course, I get excited about ideas in general. I just don't get excited about ideas for startup companies. The world of ideas is exciting and vast, right? But the company is driven by like the passion of its founders for their customers, for solving some problem, or like for creating some joy for somebody. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is their personal background, their journey, how they got there, what drives them. That to me is interesting, rather than exactly like what business model trick they want to employ on day one, which ends up changing.
What about the problem that they're solving that's like a real pain point?
All the good problems are they don't have to be. No, they're not hard to discover. Like there's big problems in the world. World hunger. You have a startup to fix world hunger. It'll be awesome. But it's not because you invented world hunger or you thought of this. Like what I'm saying? Like with like the problem that like Uber solved. It was a great startup. It was really great, but like it wasn't a novel idea. Like using a phone to call a cab or in whatever form made a lot of sense. I had that idea. Who hadn't had that idea? Right.
Do you have a good, funny story about, strangest story, one kind of sticks out in your memory about being pitched?
I don't really love being pitched. I mean, does anyone really love being pitched?
No, this is not about loving it. This is about being like really wacky.
Sometimes it's just inappropriate,
you're at some
really
place where you want to. That's great. Inappropriate.
Just inappropriate in the sense that like you sometimes just want to talk to people at some event, like you want to connect and get to know someone, and they're like, ready, I'm going to pitch you now. Like without even asking whether they should. Like that's kind of annoying. I don't like that. I try to get them to stop. you know, even I understand.
Well, nobody likes to be sold to, right?
I mean, it's important to them to get funded or whatever, but it's just not the path to the destination. I just wanted to say that I can suddenly like relate a lot better to the entrepreneurs.
Well, you must have fundraised before, no?
I have, you know, I haven't done a lot of it. I have raised money a couple times early in my career, but you know, most of the stuff I've done myself was bootstrap, and I've just been helping people raise money so much. Like the bulk of the advice I've been giving, running this accelerator I've been running, is you know how to actually raise money. So it's just interesting to have just spent like 5 years full time helping people do something that you haven't been doing yourself.
Right, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I try not to just like jump down people's throats and pitch them. Like, try to meet people and I share my passion for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's fun. But this idea that you deliver a pitch and get an answer, it's not quite how it works.
I know, I understand. I mean, I think a lot of business right now is about hustling, right? And so, and it's networking and hustling, right? And so you go to events and people go, oh, you're a lawyer. And they expect you to kind of try and sell your services to them. You know what? I don't need to do that. If you need my services, you'll come to me. But there's almost this like, as soon as you say, oh, I'm a lawyer, there's this almost this like negative, oh, they're just waiting for you to pitch them, right? Your firm.
Well, you know how it is. There's
I know how it is.
Junior associate lawyers have been put in a position of pressure to sell services, right? And so they go to these events and they don't know how to sell because they actually were educated as lawyers, not as salespeople. And so, yeah, they've kind of ruined their reputation.
Yeah.
For
So
the
I
people
totally
like you who
understand.
just want to go and meet interesting people
Exactly.
and build relationships, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
that
Long-term
later you can sell
relationships. So they come to you. I like to have people come to me. I don't like to pitch services. If people don't already know they need my services, I'm not going to convince them.
Well, yeah, presumably you have value to deliver, and it's legitimate value.
Presumably, yes, of course I have value to deliver.
Yeah, exactly, and you're proud of it, and so that's an easy story to tell without being annoyed by it.
Exactly. Do you have a worst fail or rejection story, just so other people know you're human?
I mean, yeah, like the early fundraising stuff was just non-stop, constant rejection and failures. I mean, yeah, I failed. The worst failure, well, I had a company like failed pretty damn quickly. It was called Gotta Flirt. I try not to mention that I started it. It was
it's
a
on your
ridiculous
side,
idea.
so.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not, I'm not hiding it. But yeah, that was a pretty big fail. Like 3 middle-aged divorced guys, like building a site to target like 18 to 20-year-olds for like online flirting, dating. Like, yeah, it didn't work at all. We were the wrong folks to build this. And
what was your takeaway? Were you like, or did you come away with some big lesson from that?
Right. I mean, well, it was kind of the end of my lesson. That for me, it's just that I'm actually a great entrepreneur. Like I don't. Yeah, I knew that.
Your track
I knew that
record,
before.
would say otherwise.
Oh, no, my track record would confirm it clearly. Yeah, I'm a great angel investor, and maybe I can be a great other kinds of investor. But I think I'm a pretty great mentor in the right circumstances. But I was a very average, mediocre entrepreneur.
You had a lot of successes.
No, I don't. I don't know where you got that idea. I had a couple, like one decent exit, but not a couple. Well, maybe even a couple, but nothing large, nothing that I would consider a success, nothing that met my ambition at the time, and nothing that I was proud of while I was doing it. When I was starting my own companies, I always felt like this was just a temporary thing I'm doing right now for a quick win, and really I want to do the next thing. I've always talked about the next thing. And the first time I was really at peace with myself about who I was when I realized maybe, 12 or 14 years ago, that I am in fact an investor. And that's who I am, and that's what I'll always be. And ever since I had that realization that investing wasn't something I did on the side, like many angels, but was my main occupation, and that I had both the means and the ability to do it successfully, that I've been happy ever since. But
interesting.
Yeah, the lessons on starting stuff, it's not for everyone, and it's absolutely not for me. I mean, you have to be really dedicated to one thing for a long time, and as an investor, you can be in a bunch of things in parallel.
I completely understand. I know I'm not an entrepreneur. I had my own firm for a little bit, but it's very different than starting a startup. But I know I wouldn't want to do it, but And it is a huge commitment. That was actually one of my questions: is how do you commit to something like that? And go from an idea. Oh wow, this is.
And I have to give you a caveat. Like I can conceive of a situation where I would do it again, right? If I had something that I really believed in that much, right? You commit to it because you have no other choice. And now, look for founders. How did the founders that I want to invest in commit to the idea? They couldn't not commit. They believe in it so deeply. They care about it so much. They care about the people they're doing it with so much, and the people for whom they're doing it so much, that the notion of commitment doesn't actually enter their minds. They're already committed. By the time they think about it, they're fully committed. It just happens, it's passion. It's not, it's just the people who are deciding, should I commit to the startup? Oh, it's a long commitment. Should I really do it? Should I quit my job even? I have a really steady job. No, don't quit your damn job. Keep your job. If you're asking yourself these questions, you're not there. Any more than should I propose to the girl I'm dating or should I not? Don't propose to her, right? I mean, isn't that what the answer you give anybody?
Yeah.
Should I, if you're not sure, you're not sure. I mean, a commitment to start a business requires confidence and certainty.
In a parallel universe, if you weren't an investor and not an entrepreneur either, what would you be doing?
I'd be a teacher.
You'd be a teacher. Well, that makes sense with the mentorship. Do you know, would you be teaching elementary, college, anything between?
High school. It would have to be high school. There's really, I think you get the really notable coincidences by repeatedly putting yourself into a situation where such things might happen. So, for example, the startup founders, this is well known, who are very resilient, right, who don't give up easily, eventually benefit from some random, unpredictable coincidence that propels them to the top of their market, right? Or creates a market for them that they didn't even know existed. Or like a personal example, I met my wife on a train, okay?
That's a good coincidence, you can start with that.
I met my first wife online on a computer in the 80s before people did such things, but I met my current wife on a train in Ukraine, which was very coincidental, but at the same time, I was looking for a serious relationship for some time, and I didn't really use the dating sites very much. I used them a little bit, I think, but mostly I took the middle seat in every flight, and I got on trains where there's multiple people sitting next to each other. I put myself in a situation where I met lots of people and was open to coincidence, and I talked to all of them.
I was thinking more and then you met your wife, and then it turned out that 3 of your friends knew her, and they wanted to introduce you guys, but never got around to it. See, that's a coincidence, and then you meet her on your own and fall in love.
I suppose, yeah. I don't know, I can't think of one then. No. But I think there have been lots. They happen. But also people misunderstand, and they just think, oh, it's just so amazing, this coincidence is so unlikely, when in fact it's highly likely. It's just supposed to happen once every 10 years, because, a lot of things happen in 10 years, and things often aren't as unlikely as they seem when you take them out of the context of a long period of time during which it could have occurred. And that's an example of the blackjack-induced thinking that influenced me.
Yeah, because I didn't put it on my list, but I was going to ask you sort of having this intense blackjack career, I guess, in your early years, it must have influenced how you approach investing and
it has a little bit. It forces a little bit of rationality onto an otherwise emotional situation. It
Can
makes
you card count as you do angel investing?
In a sense, blackjack. Well, I think that it also taught me to just be very fast and bold. When something makes sense, I don't hesitate to just do it. If an investment makes sense, I can make a 30-second decision. From the beginning of meeting the person to committing capital. It could just be immediate. When there's some reason for it to be quick, it needs to be quick, right? And you can act on limited information and make rational decisions.
So you think it's rational, you think it's not emotional, right? So
you want it to be,
both, you want it to be rational,
right?
But I think a lot of investment is emotional, right?
Yeah, it's emotional, but it's also rational, right? It's that
but there's a lot
yin
of
and the yang, right? It has to be both emotional and rational.
In the perfect world, yes.
Well, I wouldn't write a check without both components lining up. So I would say it's not just in the perfect world. I think it always actually is both in the real world. Unless you're running some quant fund or something and it's completely rational, right? Then there's just computers making the decisions.
Yeah.
But that's what blackjack actually was to a large extent, and I have no interest in that. That's not interesting to me. There's no value, right? I guess there's value because you're doing arbitrage and you're helping the markets become more efficient. But nobody ever says thank you. You don't have customers. You don't serve anybody when you do that kind of investing. The nice thing about angel investing is very personal, and you actually get to help people. You get to mentor them. The check just gets you a seat at the table, and then you try to be helpful. And sometimes you can be very impactful. Sometimes in a small amount of time, you can make a really big difference. And that's pretty neat.
That is pretty neat. And yeah, we have a different role, right? Being law firm, but I think I enjoy a lot of similar things that you do, being kind of involved in lots of different companies at the same time, being able to kind of add your own perspective. Our perspective is somewhat different, but still, a lot of it's actually business oriented because we're repeat players. We see these companies over and over and over again, and so we get a lot of very young entrepreneurs. So we're mentoring in our own right.
Absolutely, you get to dispense business advice. It doesn't have to only be legal advice.
Exactly. Well, and I think that's part of
and even legal advice. Every once in a while, very rarely, right? But sometimes the legal advice could actually be life changing. Right, you can really save someone from something bad happening.
Yeah.
With 30 seconds of your time could save 5 years of their life, right?
Yeah.
Just by keeping them from doing something stupid. And so when that happens, and they're really grateful for you because they know something bad would have happened without you, right? Then you get to have that gratitude and that feeling of making a difference in the world. It's pretty cool. That's the same thing.
Yeah. So single book or person or moment in your life that stands out as this changed my life forever.
A book that changed my life.
Well, it could be a book or something that.
With books have happened more, when I was younger, of course, right?
Doesn't have to be,
but you get influenced more by books as a kid, I think.
Or something somebody said. Or
I named my first daughter after a character in a book that I don't particularly like right now, but it definitely influenced me. It was an Ayn Rand book. My daughter's named Agni. I don't know, a lot of things influence me. I think fiction generally influences me more than non-fiction, I will say that. I prefer fiction.
Interesting. So you don't read the succeed in business books?
Yeah, I don't read a lot of those books. I skim them. I can't bring myself to really read them. I try to read the thesis. Some classic business books you really have to read, but I think I learn more about people and human dynamics and complex things about people from novels than from any kind.
Interesting, even though it's fiction and people actually don't act the way they act in fiction in real life.
But the fiction is written by real people based on their real understanding of humans. And while the characters are fictional, right, the stories, the fiction illustrates the thoughts, the emotions.
The emotions, yeah. I kind of feel like, and this is a problem with TV and movies, and I think it's very aspirational. So the person who, the author, right, who is a real person, he has his characters say and do things that he wouldn't dare say or do in real life a lot of times. So it's this amplified version of people. They're maybe ruder, crasser, more bold, right? They're breaking out of their box, and it's interesting. It's interesting to read because real life, it's okay, but probably most people don't want to read about our lives, day to day, kind of minute to minute.
Yeah,
right?
No, I know what you mean, but the saying's true. Truth is stranger than fiction, right? Invariably, I think the real life situations end up being even more intense than anything people can dream of.
That's true. There can be some very strange situations. Number 1 on your bucket list.
I don't think you mean travel destinations. You're talking about projects, anything,
yeah.
Right? Well, what I'm doing, right? The number 1 thing on my bucket list is the next thing on the to-do list, and obviously, because that's what you got to do, right? Why else would you do anything else next except for the number 1 thing on your bucket list?
I think that's actually really wiser than you realize. I think a lot of people do what you did early in your career, where I'll put this off. The important thing is this, but I need to get there. I need to get married, buy a house.
It's terrible.
I don't know.
It's sad. It's unfortunate. You do have to plan ahead sometimes, but you have to take multiple steps to get there. But you gotta know where you're going, and you gotta always be going to the main thing that you really want. Mm-hmm. So, to answer your question, I will tell you about what I'm doing now, which is a fund to back immigrant entrepreneurs, for immigrants, by immigrants. Because I love immigrants, I believe in immigrants, I believe that immigrants make the best entrepreneurs on average, and I think a fund like that is really needed in the world today.
I agree with you. As I told you, I've had this conversation with 3 or 4 different people, that there's this massive need for something like this, and so it's wonderful that you're actually stepping up and doing it.
Yeah, and beyond that, I'll say that I need to do it not just because it's a great investment thesis, and not just because immigrants make this country better. Like as an American, I certainly want more immigrants in America to make America better. It's good to make America better. It's a nice thing to do. But I don't really care that much about it. What I really care about is the immigrants themselves. And I care about like the fundamental human right to be anywhere, live anywhere, work anywhere. The idea of equal opportunity that should prevent the notion that just because of the accident of birth, being born across some arbitrary border, you gotta apply for some permission or be part of some quota in order to just like get a job. I think it's fundamentally morally wrong, and I'll be happy spending the rest of my life fighting for that notion.
So it seems like there are separate aspects. I mean, there's the kind of visa issue, right? So you're saying equal opportunity, and you should be able to come here. They can't right now, right? There's not necessarily a visa for everyone who wants to come here. On the other hand, in terms of being able to build a successful business here, assuming somehow you were able to come here, and you're on the East Coast, which might be culturally different, I don't know, than here. It feels like people don't care about accent here, at least. They care about you knowing how to do business in the US, which is kind of its own club, right? You have to know how to do things, but even if you have a thick accent, as long as you can get your idea across well, and you know how to, like, you understand, like, don't come, charging at people, pitching them, right? Like, have some, as long as you know that, it seems like it's not that discriminatory. I mean, would you disagree with that? Do you think there's like a glass ceiling for immigrants just based on the fact that they're immigrant versus based on something that, they don't have enough knowledge of specific aspects of life here?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that it's like fantastically discriminatory. I mean, immigrants who make it here tend to do pretty well, generally speaking, so they don't need to sit around and complain about how hard it is. There is some discrimination, naturally there is, just because, the people making the decisions aren't themselves recent immigrants. The immigrant past is so far behind that they're more similar to each other. The WASP men, the ECs in a typical fund. Like, it's just, I think they want to generally invest in immigrants, but it's a little harder for them, especially to invest in first-time immigrant entrepreneurs who don't have a reputation of success, who can't prove that they know how things work here yet, and maybe don't know exactly how things work here yet. I think it's just naturally harder for them to understand and trust those people. But that's not the main point. It's not that discrimination is so terrible. These people will do and will overcome it, right? Mm-hmm. All the time. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why I have the unicorns of immigrant founders, because they overcame it. And I think you're right, also, especially on the West Coast, plenty of investors love immigrant founders and want to invest in them.
If you like this video, please make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. And I will have links to Semyon's website, and he'll have, I'm sure, more interesting and updated content there shortly.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's wave to our viewers.